What's up, everybody? Well, I got another gameplay video for you guys today, or I should say, at least I hope I do. We're gonna try to play some Metro Exodus. So far, this game has not seemed to like AMD very much. The only thing it's been able to play on is the Steep Deck, which didn't give us playable FPS, so kind of a moot point, but at least it didn't crash or do anything goofy in the time I played, like the 10-15 minutes I played. And then the Asus Ally, which is on a completely different driver. It's kind of its own, proprietary Asus driver for it. I should use the newest drivers, but I just like keeping things stock, because the second I tried to mess with stuff on the Alienware, it was not happy. Although, the Asus G50 Advantage didn't seem to care that I didn't use the Asus drivers for the GPU. I never had black screens or any problems with that guy. The only thing I didn't like was the lack of muck switch, so I used to hook it up to an external monitor, but no real room for a big one of those in the kitchen, so I'm trying to figure out something. Maybe like a little portable one, but we'll see. But hopefully, this guy will redeem AMD a little bit and it will give us playable frame rates, although be it probably not, with ray tracing, like maxed out on Ultra or whatever. And that's not even being pessimistic about it, I'm just being realistic. Most of the time, AMD is not great when it comes to ray tracing, and it's generally not the best when it comes to upscaling. But still, we're gonna give it a shot, and hopefully it'll at least be able to play. But only one way to find out. Let's jump into the game.
All right, so this one is definitely a weird child. It decided to work just fine, maxed completely out. However, when I tried to lower the graphics settings, it seemed to start doing the errors where it timed out the graphics driver and shit. So, I don't know, it seems to do just fine if you're okay playing it maxed out and alright with dropping it under 60 every once in a blue moon. So alright, here we are at the beginning of the game, where you drop down. Funny enough, it seems to be getting very similar FPS to the Alienware at 1200p. However, this is ultra-wide. So, quite a bit more pixels to push. And I'm not gonna lie, when it did that stutter there, I thought it crashed. I was like, God damn it. But no, at least as long as I played, it didn't crash. Now, obviously, if I played for 10, 15, 20 minutes, maybe no matter what, it would be doomed to have a driver timeout. But it only seemed to do that when I tried to get a few more FPS. So, I guess if you want to play on this kind of a system, at least right now, currently, when this video was made, which by the time it comes out might change, it doesn't really want to let me play. So, obviously, if people are playing this and it's not doing any of this stuff to it, please let me know, because that probably means there's a different driver out, and that probably means I can actually retest. Regardless, I'm going to go and play the old school game too, seeing as a bunch of my computers didn't even want to play at all, and I want to actually see if the handhelds can get playable FPS. Only the Ally was able to play and seem to have no problems, but it's different because it doesn't have the newest drivers. It has some custom Asus drivers still. Now, a lot of people told me I should just run the latest ones, but heck, that might have been the only reason why I could actually play this game on it. Albeit at under 60 FPS, even on low, but still, it was playable. It was 40s to mid 60s, depending on what you were doing. And I don't think that one would have dropped under 30 no matter what. And that's people, it's an absolute bare minimum usually on handhelds. Me too, I can forgive 30, 40 on a handheld. It's a little, handheld. It's not a powerhouse. The best way to look at it is that this is whatchamacallit. Steam Deck's kind of like a PS4. The GPU is not quite as powerful, but the CPU is massively more powerful. And then the Ally X is kind of almost as powerful as the PS4 Pro, but again, the PS4's Pro GPU is still quite a bit ahead, but it's held back by that garbage processor. I mean, the Ally CPU would run circles around an old Jaguar CPU that was in the old consoles. But something had to give. They really had to make those ones extra cheap. So they at least gave you the thing that matters the most, which is GPU. But that's why there was so many 30 FPS games back in the day. As soon as we bumped out to at least a Zen 2 CPU, we were good for a while, but now games are Unreal Engine 5, they're using ray tracing, and all this shit, and all of that. Well, ray tracing not always, but a lot of the time ray tracing is CPU intensive too. A lot of people don't notice that. Hell, I didn't even notice that till I started testing games, and I'm like, huh, this thing seems to do a lot worse than the Intel, like my 7800X3D. That's where that one falls on its face. I've never really seen it beat my Intel rig when ray tracing's involved. Now, maybe my 7800X3D could, but that's, got an AMD GPU attached to it, so I can't really test ray tracing out very well. I mean, we are now. It's working right now, but usually it does not work this good. But as you see, it went down to 69, 65. Makes me think there's harder to run places. It's probably going to drop here and there under 60. But for the most part, it seems to be more than playable maxed out on this system. Now, if we were at 4K instead of ultra-wide, probably would be dropping under 60 a lot more often. I still think it could get over 60 in certain places, but I don't think it would with everything maxed, like all the ray tracing maxed and all that. If we're only getting 60, 70 now, 4K is a whole nother animal. It's way harder to run than ultra-wide, which is why I made this an ultra-wide GPU. I figured it'd be a match made in heaven, and so far it usually is. Very rarely do I even need to rely on upscaling on this thing. But anyway, let us move along. All right, now here's where the weirdness starts. I figured, okay, well, we dropped down to like 65, 66. Probably would drop under 60, so why don't we try going a little easier on the ray tracing? And then would probably stay in like the high 80s to 90s instead, and maybe even average 100, you know? But instead, it made the game unstable and start having driver timeouts, so I'll go show you exactly where it freezes. I think it's right around the same spot as always. Here we are at the beginning of the game again, and damn, definitely seems like it gained a couple more FPS, at least all the way up here. But if we're getting more FPS up here, it should correlate to more FPS once we get to the ground, but unfortunately, we don't really get to see much before it decides to be lame and just freeze on us. Oh, did we not get a... We didn't get a stutter coming down from the sky so far, unless it's still yet to happen. I think last time when we had the game maxed out, I think we got a big old stutter. Here we go, trying to get down to the sewer, and this seems to be a lot of the problems on a lot of my AMD systems. We can't seem to get past this part a lot of the time. I don't know why. I don't know if it's the driver, if the game just hates AMD. It's very strange. But I mean, if it hated AMD, it would have just failed on the maxed out setting too, you would think. So it's got to be something else fishy going on.
Alright, I tried to go to high settings and that did not go well. It did the driver timeout shit. So now I'm going to see if we can go back to having it just be maxed out and see if it's still playable and whatnot. Or if it's just going to do the same driver timeout now. Because who knows, it might have done that had I kept playing anyway. It's hard to say, but I definitely am going to say that this game does not really appreciate AMD. But since it's all about ray tracing anyway, most people on AMD should just avoid this game, I would say anyway, because if you're on AMD, you don't usually care about ray tracing. It's not its forte. If you care about ray tracing, you get NVIDIA. That's just how it is. So, it's kind of a moot point that it doesn't run well on here. But I'm curious. It actually ran alright on here. It just was getting kind of close to dropping under 60. So I figured, yeah, well, let's see how high it does. And let's see if it crashes. And it did. So I'm curious. Can we actually play? Or is it just going to be a total failure all the time now? Because it did the same stuff as before. We dropped down here, hit the floor, and then it instantly froze. Although it didn't freeze my whole computer up. I actually was able to just close the game, and then I restarted the computer anyway because I had a driver crash. Anytime I have a driver crash of any kind, I like giving the computer a restart. Okay, no, this time we didn't crash right away anyway by jumping down here. And we're not recording this time, so nothing should be interfering with our FPS. Well, we're recording the camera, obviously, but we're not recording with anything on the computer. I should be more specific. Although I feel like most people understand what I was saying anyway. Sometimes I just like being more specific. And I'm just curious. Let's see if it crashes or anything. Or has any more driver timeouts. But I'd still be weary. Unless you're okay with playing it maxed out. Because granted, you can't lower the settings. Otherwise, it's just terrible. And it still might crash, like I said. Like this. But so far, I've gotten the farthest on Ultra. With ray tracing and everything maxed out. I mean, it's not like it's unplayable. There's some spots, like I said, it still gets into the high 60s, but I've never seen it drop under 60 yet. So there's that. So down to 66. So that's what made me think. Stuff like that made me think, okay, there's probably going to be some spots where we drop, you know? They're wasting the ammo, right? To play maxed out. If you don't play maxed out, it seems to want to give you driver timeout. Interesting. Don't get me wrong, like I can play for like 30 minutes and it might start to win the driver timeouts on this setting too, but in any case, I think it's time for us to wrap this video on up. Well, alright guys, that's a wrap for Metro Exodus PC Enhanced Edition on the secondary computer. And the weird thing about this one is, it seems to want to run maxed out. If you drop the settings at all, then I get those driver timeouts. And it might be the same way in the other computers, but they can't quite handle it maxed out anyway, so that doesn't really do me any good now, does it? Or half the other people out there. Unless you've got a PC that's about as fast as this, or have like the 1 or 2 down, like a 7800 XT or a 7900 XT. Those would probably still play this game. Maybe not maxed out ray tracing, but I'd still say at 1440 and 1080, they'd probably be more than fine for 60 plus, even with ray tracing maxed out. You only need a GPU like this if you want to do like ultra wide 4K or just have crazy amounts of FPS at 1440, unless you've got games that have ray tracing enabled by default. Then no matter what, usually these things fall flat on their face, but hey, it did a pretty damn good job in this game. Even though it's an older title, I figured I wasn't going to be getting no playable FPS, and it still never dropped under 60. I'm willing to bet it will at some points in the game, but at least in what we played, no, it was great. Great experience. Minimal stutters, very, very pleasant. Just can't lower the settings unless you want driver timeouts. Don't know what's up with that, but hey, it is what it is. So we'll see how it does on the other 2 PCs next, and those are both NVIDIA, so since the game was designed all around that, it should be just fine, but keyword is always should. Just because something should be fine does not mean it will. But in any case, that's all I got for this video, so I hope you guys enjoyed the video, because I sure as hell enjoyed making it for you guys. And until the next video, peace out, guys.